Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
8:06 now as we charge headfirst into our fourth hour. If you missed any of the show up until now, please subscribe and download our podcast. Coming up in 30 minutes, Governor Scott Walker will join us, talk about the importance of this election in Wisconsin tomorrow and how it will affect your life no matter where you are right now. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And for those who have not yet... Everything all right? All right. For those who have not yet listened to the show and you're just joining us now, you missed our last segment where we discussed these protests, these spontaneous, organic, grassroots protests against Tesla dealerships, Tesla manufacturers, Tesla owners. But it turns out they're not quite as grassroots and organic as you may have thought. We saw some right here in our backyard in Alexandria. Asra Nomani, independent journalist, author of Woke Army. She was out there. She checked it out, and she also did a deep dive into who's behind all this. And she joins us now, a good friend of this program, Asra Nomani. It's been a little while. Good to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's been a while, Julie. Hello, Larry. Oh my gosh, I've missed you guys, but I have been busy, and
yes.
and you know, if you haven't heard from me, I'm up to some trouble.
That's right. Asra Nomani says I've been busy, and that's going to turn the woke organized left into sleepless nightmares. All right, so you were out at Tyson's. You got a good video of the maniacs that are out there, but more importantly, you checked out the paperwork behind all of this. Tell me about the organizations you uncovered and how much money and what's really going on here.
Yeah, so this is an anecdote, again, that illustrates to everyone, I hope, that you just have to look in your backyard to understand what's going on nationally. So I went down to Tyco Road off of Route 7, and I arrived early, like I always do for protests, to see who is the first person to arrive at the protest, who's the logistics coordinator. And it was this woman who was with this organization called Third Act. It sounds really nice. It's about for senior citizens to... Yes, we're in our third act, Larry, and
tell me about it.
And we got 5 to go. We got 5 acts. So so it sounds really nice. The senior citizens over 60 involved to help the environment. Well, what do you know? There they park in front of the Tesla dealership, and I start seeing some familiar faces, folks that you've heard about before that have been active against the school board, for the school board against parents. So one of them was a leader for Indivisible, an organization that, again, sounds wonderful, but what is it? It's a 501c4 political organization, multi-million-dollar, and then another woman showed up who is with one of the education groups that supports the school board. Well, what did I do then? I went back home. Well, I had a lot of fun getting heckled and harassed as people started spreading rumors about me in the crowd, and then I went home, and what I did was I analyzed. There's something you call scraping of a website, and so I scraped the data of all the protests and established that indeed there's 42 national organizations that have been involved, and they have combined revenues of $149 million. And these are the organizations that have been involved, in the anti-Tesla protests.
So, I've seen some of the polling that a majority of people are sort of negative about Tesla. Some polling says that Americans are upset about Doge. And certainly some of the activities of this group can account for that. Do you think, though, that, you've seen Musk and some of his engineers and some of the people involved with Doge pushing back, giving these really great interviews, for instance, the one with Brett Baer, and then he did this rally in Wisconsin trying to explain to the American public, look, we're just really trying to root out some of this waste. What is your thoughts on how Americans are reacting to this sort of very organized effort to hurt Tesla, to hurt Elon Musk?
Well, this organized effort is a partisan effort. And so it is what amounts to half of our country in representation. In Fairfax County, it's about 2/3 of the county. And what Elon Musk is obviously doing is also partisan in that he's working with the Republican Party. But the problem that we've had is that...
I'm sorry, I just want to point something out. That's the Republican Party that just won the election.
Yeah, exactly.
The president, he works for the president of the United States as a special advisor on an issue that Trump literally ran on.
Right.
How many rallies did he bring Elon Musk onto the stage and say, we're going to put Elon Musk in charge of government efficiency? It's like, I recognize you're being very fair and judicious in how you lay this out, but I think it's important to point out this isn't just Republicans versus Democrats. This is the election victory that just happened. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
To your point exactly, Larry, is that it's clearly partisan. Do you know what I mean? It's clearly an election victory. It's clearly a political party. But what's happening with the protests is that they're pretending like it's grassroots. It's just the people emerging, you know? But what I reveal in this reporting then is it is partisan. And so all of these people who showed up on Tyco Road are Democratic Party activists and ideologues.
Right.
And so don't pretend that, you know, you're doing this for the federal worker and, you know, and Social Security. You're doing it to win the White House again, basically. That's the bottom line.
Two quick questions, Asra Nomani. You just laid out a bunch of these organizations that kind of funny. How did you just ask the leaders of these groups, you know, who are you with? What's your name of your organization? And they just volunteered it to you?
Well, what happens is, you know, they love to brag, and so this technology that we're able to do now is basically scrape, like I said, use that word, the places where they brag, and so there's these two Democratic websites called Action Network, and then the other one is Mobilize, and that's where they promote all their activities.
Oh,
and so,
okay, great.
Yeah,
right.
So I just scraped the protest information and then found their organizers.
And one other quick question before I throw it back to Julie here. Is there any evidence that these people are paid, that they're reimbursed in some way for their time?
Well, what's really interesting is that that's what they always turn to. We don't get paid. But I don't have evidence myself, but what I do know and what I think matters is that it's not mom and pop that show up at the Tesla dealership to say, no, Elon, got to go. It's a multi-million-dollar organization that has basically used all of its muscle in order to bring these people out. They literally had a poster. They had a poster lending library in a wagon. You know, yeah. They have, they have these toolkits, right? And now I just want everyone to be prepared that April 5th, they've got 900 protests planned across the country, and you know me, so what I've done is scrape that data now, and now what I'm doing is going through another 100 organizations, Larry and Julie, that have been activated.
Amazing.
And what are their names? Oh, things like MoveOn.org, you know?
Right.
You know, yeah, a very democratic organization, and the others that are just like basically proxies for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, this is basically exactly. This is all AstroTurf from Democrat activists. Asra Nomani, thanks for doing this deep dive and explaining it to us. And just so you know, as you continue to uncover this, you might want to let Julie know that half of these people are her neighbors. There. You know,
Astra knows. Astra knows.
It's like doing a potluck there in Julie's neighborhood.
Oh, trust me, I've got all the cover for her. You know, basically, I picked up a few signs so she could walk to the market and kind of go incognito. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Astra.
Oh, yeah.
Always looking out for me.
Julie likes to keep a low profile there at Wegmans. All right. Thanks, Astra.
All right, you guys, thank
15.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
WMAL traffic.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
I am quite convinced, Julie Gunlock, that Donald Trump dreams up things to sort of throw out there just so Joe and Mika have something to talk about on a Monday morning. And by talk, I mean, scream, rent their clothing, cry, and, turn their faces red. And my guess is that his impromptu press conference on board Air Force One, where he floated the idea of running for a third term, may in fact be one of these examples. Here he was explaining how, what are we, 70 days into this President Trump's term, where he says, basically, yeah, there's a way to make this happen, and we're going to do it. Here, take a listen.
You said you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is, in a way, a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election, was totally rigged.
Did you hear the reporter? Does that mean you're not going to leave office in January of 29? Is that what you mean? Are you calling for the Proud Boys? Is that what this means?
Did you hear her hyperventilating right after she asked the question?
It's wonderful, yes. In the presidential paper bag there on Air Force One. Here's cut 27, a little bit more.
I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about it. But I've had a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think that's an appropriate precedent to set, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a third term?
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. We have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
Well, there you go, Julie. He's joking, but he's not joking. He's not looking at it, but he is looking at it, and everyone's going nuts. My favorite part, by the way, is technically it'll be my fourth term because I already won the second time, but I don't want credit for that because Biden ruined everything.
Look, has anyone checked on David French and Jonah Goldberg? Honestly. Stephen Hayes.
Oh, what a nightmare.
All the think pieces coming out,
Oh, well, forget about that. What about J.D. Vance saying,
He's so young, Larry. He is so young. He's younger than us. He's got time.
Here's the thing, though. True greatness is inspiring others to pick up the baton when you're done and being able to charge forward and do it. And oh, by the way, there is the matter of the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution that precludes
Stop
somebody
ruining this moment, Larry. Let's just let him stress everyone out, okay?
Also, by the way, we do have 3 years and 10 months of this term left before we start considering.
How many heads will explode? Everybody better be on their blood pressure medications, okay? We don't want any injuries out there, okay?
These are glorious moments when this happened. This is classic Trump. A lot of people are asking me to do it. I can't tell you how many people want me to run for a third term. But it's not something I'm looking at right now. And then they take the bait, and then that's all they want to talk about. Is this an appropriate thing to say? Does this mean you don't want to leave office? Does this mean you're going to be a dictator? Does this mean... And what's Trump going to say? Yes, that's exactly what it means. I'm going to be a dictator.
Yes, I am sort of amazed at people like this. Like, after everything he's been through, I mean... I've not been through these things, and I'm looking forward to retirement, okay? Like, I just am amazed that these people just don't want to relax. I mean, he's got Mar-a-Lago. You can relax by the pool for the rest of your life. I don't understand people who don't, do that. I don't know.
So the New York Post wrote this up, and I'm unclear on what this... So here's what he says. Trump says he's not joking about third term and notes this apparent loophole. There are methods. So you read in, it's like, what's the loophole? Hold on, there's a loophole to the 22nd Amendment. The 22nd Amendment is pretty clear. Trump claimed there are methods to do it, including having Vice President J.D. Vance now run for president with Trump as his vice president. Then Vance would then resign to allow Trump to regain the top job. And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah, there's a method. That's certainly
well, it says the 22nd Amendment specifically says that no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice.
But can be appointed, I guess.
Technically, well, not even appointed. He's not elected as president. He's elected as vice president. Although there aren't a whole lot of sort of constitutional requirements to hold office. One of the requirements for vice president, I would think, is that you are constitutionally eligible to be president. Like, you couldn't have somebody who is not a natural-born citizen run for vice president. So if you're not constitutionally eligible to be president, how could you run for vice president properly, right? So I guess what you would need is Vance and Rubio to run on a ticket. And then as soon as they're sworn in, Rubio steps down and resigns. Vance appoints Trump as vice president, although that would take a House confirmation. Then Vance steps down, then Trump becomes president. And I figured it all out for everybody. We've got this. Let's spend the next 3 years and 10 months worrying about it. I'm so happy. Honestly, this is one of those things. He steps back into the back press space on Air Force One and says, all right, let's talk to the reporters for a while. And they spend 90% of the time talking about this. And he goes back to the front of the plane laughing, saying, well, these idiots. That's all they want to talk to me about?
Exactly.
It's 8:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37 on O'Connor and Company here on WMAL, the talk radio station of record in the United States of America. Coming up in 30 minutes, Chris Plant's going to take over, but Julie and I still have some important business to take care of. Good morning, Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
And joining us right now is Governor Scott Walker. He, of course, is the president of Young America's Foundation, where he is single-handedly, well, along with the great staff over at Young America's Foundation, building up the next generation of young conservatives, and they certainly made a difference and an impact in this last November's election. But right now, he is focusing on his home state of Wisconsin, as a Supreme Court election, which takes place tomorrow, could, in fact, tip the balance of power in the state nationally. To explain why that is and explain why informed minds in this country who care about politics and government are focused acutely on this race is the aforementioned Scott Walker. Governor Walker, thanks for joining us as always.
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you guys.
Why should D.C., Virginia, Maryland, why should anyone in the country care about this Supreme Court election tomorrow in Wisconsin?
Well, we've seen how razor thin the House majority is, so much so that Elise Stefanik, who would have been a great ambassador to the United Nations, had to back away, and they withdrew the nomination just because they were worried about how long the governor of New York would hold that seat vacant. That shows you how thin and fragile the House majority is. In Wisconsin, it's been said now multiple times. Tammy Baldwin, the U.S. Senator, just said it over the weekend. Hakeem Jeffries said it last week. An invitation for one of Susan Crawford, the liberal running for the court's fundraisers, all have said that if she wins, there'll be a new 4-3 activist majority that will redraw the congressional boundaries here in Wisconsin, and in doing so, eliminate 2, if not 3, at least 2, maybe as much as 3 seats currently held by Republicans in the U.S. House. So right there alone, this is why George Soros, Rex Hoffman, J.D. Pritzker, and other liberal billionaires are spending money here in Wisconsin at a record pace.
Wow.
Because they want to buy 2 House seats and flip the majority.
Governor Walker, you know Wisconsin voters damn well. You've won statewide there multiple times against all odds. I can't imagine Wisconsinites saying, hey, let's give Democrats the power in the House by electing Susan Crawford to the Supreme Court. I would think that they're more concerned about law and order, crime, making sure that bad guys are put away. In that regard, Susan Crawford has a terrible record.
She does. I mean, even the Milwaukee newspaper, which is traditionally very liberal, did a piece a few weeks ago where they compared the ads and said people are all confused because they're all running, both camps are running ads accusing the other of being weak on crime. And even that Milwaukee paper acknowledged that Brad Schimmel, the former attorney general, a judge I appointed years ago, is a much more, the sentences he hands down are much longer, much more harsh, whereas she's been letting out, people, convicted felons who literally raped 5, 6, 7-year-olds. It's outrageous. She doesn't belong on any bench, in my opinion, let alone the high court of the state of Wisconsin. That said, because of this early heavy money advantage, put this in perspective, she's now spent about $10 million more than I spent my entire first campaign for governor in Wisconsin. So this shows you how the stakes are and why these billionaires are pouring money at. Elon Musk, more recently got involved to try and level the playing field, and they're accusing him of trying to buy the election when they're still way ahead on money. He's just helped level the playing field, and that's where it's confusing to a lot of voters. They need to understand what's going on here and what's at stake.
John Solomon has reported that nearly 5,000 allegedly illegal voter registrations were found in Milwaukee ahead of the Wisconsin election. Has anything been done about that? I know it's coming up here, so I mean, have they addressed that issue in Milwaukee?
Well, the problem you always have in places like Wisconsin is in Madison, Milwaukee, the actions taken have to be taken by legal authorities in two of the largest counties with, not just Democrat, but highly liberal district attorneys. You've got a liberal attorney general in the state. It's why we continue to push. And thankfully, just like they did when I had a recall here years ago, you've got the Republican Lawyers Association coming in to help Republican election officials try to push in Milwaukee and in Dane County, where Madison's at, to try and deal with all that. But this is like, Donald Trump said last year in election, you got to make it too big to rig. I always felt like when I ran, you needed about 3 to 5 point margins to win to make up for the problems, particularly in the big cities.
Governor Walker, you just mentioned the money. You see the headlines and some of the reporting from the usual suspects in legacy media saying Elon Musk has thrown all this money in. He's trying to buy the Supreme Court seat. Can you just slowly, so everybody knows, we want to break through this myth in the media, explain to me the outside money that has come in to help Ms. Crawford here and how it compares to what money Musk may have put in the last month here?
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, I'm shocked that the Milwaukee paper did this, and other outlets should pay attention because it's so shocking. But they actually did a pretty good report last week where they pointed out that 77% of the money being spent for Crawford comes from outside the state of Wisconsin. In comparison, 15% roughly of the money for Brad Schimmel comes from outside of the state. So even with the support from Elon Musk, which again is just really a fraction of what you see from all these outside interests pouring into the state, and particularly pouring into the state party. Either state party can take money without limits and then can give it directly to the candidate. The Democrats have taken that to a whole new level over the last few years, and that's what's happening here in Wisconsin. So it is still a tremendous out-of-state advantage in money for Susan Crawford and her allies. The media, you and I have talked about this before when we talked at the National Journalism Center, which Jeff runs, and that is the media, more than just bias, often is just lazy, and they buy into this false narrative. Not to mention, they're ignoring not only the crime issues and the fact that, why should a court suddenly redraw boundaries that had already been drawn for congressional boundaries? But you look at the things I was known for, Act 10, the collective bargaining, union reforms, statewide school choice, voter ID, right to work, all those things as well could be thrown out, not because the legislature changed because they made new laws, but because 4 activists on the court decided they just wanted to impose their own agenda. That's wrong.
All right, Governor Walker, I know you've been putting in all the hours, legwork in Wisconsin. You know how to win an election there in the Badger State, so I hope your efforts come through. We'll keep an eye on it tomorrow as the results come in. Thank you, sir. Always good to talk with you.
You too. Thanks.
WMAL, making sense of the vote because elections have consequences. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
We've got an update, and it's got a bit of a Top Gun theme to it because it involves fighter jets. You remember that Chris Van Hollen and Ben Cardin held hostage a provision in a federal bill that would have allowed for RFK Stadium to be torn down and a new site to be developed for the Command Skins to move in there. And the way they held it up was to force the D.C. Air National Guard squadron of fighter jets that patrol the nation's capital to be reallocated to Maryland control. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And that was all part of the deal and had to get done. Well, now the new administration has come in, and the commander-in-chief and the Department of Defense said, no, this makes no sense. We're not going to do this. And that's all it takes, by the way, because Congress can't dictate to the commander-in-chief and the Secretary of Defense how best to protect the homeland and how best to allocate military resources to this minutia. So that's dead now. And by the way, this comes after the state's congressional delegation and Governor Wes Moore worked hard to try to make this happen.
I don't know, Larry. Some traffic cop might have or traffic judge might have a problem with this. I don't know if we've checked with all the low-level judges around DC.
Some dude at night court might say, you can't do that. But, listen, Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen and Jamie Raskin and Wes Moore spend all their time trying to call Trump, a racist, authoritarian, totalitarian dictator. And it's funny how he doesn't want to work with them when they want to get their little prize of fighter jets over there. No, maybe Maryland should rethink the way they're represented in Washington, D.C., and actually try to work with the federal government when it's not their guy in the White House. It's 8:52. That's a wrap, Julie Gunlock. Thanks. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Up next, it's Chris Plant from The Chris Plant Show.
Great Scott Walker interview. Great stuff. The Democrats, I got to tell you, I had to take some time out from burning Teslas and things to go and what is it? Stealing elections? Is that what it's called? I'm a little unclear on that.
Yeah. That's my understanding. And election denial, that sort of thing. Direct action, they like to call it. It's, we had 4 years of being told that MAGA Republicans were the threat to our process. And I don't know. I'm seeing threats on the other side on a daily basis.
Daily basis, and political violence everywhere. They had the Tesla thing. There was a great moment. There was a guy with a sign protesting at a Tesla thing. He made his own sign. It just says, I hate Elon Musk.